Morning.
Hello. Good morning. On today's episode, I don't even need Noelle to be here today because we're talking about containers. I would like you to be here, of course, but you're very busy. And I just taught yesterday, so all my notes are pulled up. This is very plug and play, just rolling right into it.
Awesome. I mean, we should invite our students next time into the podcast space. But hello,
Yes.
and I'm delighted. I thought we could switch it up today, and maybe I could serve as client.
Oh, you want me to actually use my theory, not just explain it?
I do.
Oh,
So let's back up because
yes.
listeners have no idea what we're talking about. So, um, John, once
Yes.
upon a time, you wrote a book called Containers.
Yes.
Yes.
The container, it's not called Containers, it's called The Angry Therapist. It's a long title, something about finding truth. But yes, the containers concept is in there from my post divorce and kind of rebuilding my life.
Yeah, and I thought that one of the reasons why this topic is so interesting to me is that you, as a coach practitioner, wrote this theory based on your own lived experience,
Hmm.
as just from your soul out into the world as a way to help people. And so, I wanted to give permission to our listeners and all of the coaches out there to be creative with their own lives and saying, "Wow, what really worked for me, and what can I
Hmm.
put into the world?" So when you were coming up with this, what was going on for you? How did it go? How
Yeah.
did this
Um, the,
form?
the first thing I want to say is I didn't know I was creating anything. I was just trying to survive and build a life. It wasn't until later coming out of the tunnel, I realized, oh, this is how I did it. I wonder if I can put it on paper. I wonder if I could, put structure to it and then use it to help other people. And I think a lot of coaches are going to do this. They're going to come out of, whatever they're going through, and then connect dots and realize, oh, this was helpful for me. This wasn't. And I think that's how you create criteria. That's how you create content. That's how you write books and run retreats. A lot of it is going to be coming from your own story and what you've been through.
So paint the picture. What was going on for you at the time and what led you to this theory?
Yeah, so going through a divorce and really starting over, had no direction, no friends. I was broke, had no money in the bank, and I landed a job in nonprofit, and I didn't want to work there. I went there because it came with a salary. It came with a $37,000 salary, and it came with life insurance. It came with insurance basically, right? And I didn't have a choice. But in that, and I think this is why I was supposed to work in there. I learned about having a safe space and how if you just create a safe space, because this was residential, growth can be organic, and I thought that was really fascinating. So I thought, oh, what is my life like? Is it safe? Can I rebuild myself a safe space in my personal life? And that's when I came up with and container was just a word that I thought made the most sense. I have a life container, and then I realized, I have cracks in my container. So
Mm.
how can I rebuild my container? And out of that, I came up with in class I call them doors in, kind of doors into conversations. But I came up with six concepts or six doors in on how to build a safer container for yourself so that then growth becomes a way of living. Growth becomes about life design, not just some fancy thing you do over the weekend or a program.
What I love about your containers theory, when you go through the process of doing this self reflective work, you begin to get a sense of what it's like on the client side as they
Mm,
are experiencing this. So, like it gives you an empathetic window
yeah.
into what it's like to do the work. And I don't know about you, but as somebody who works in the space of like helping so many others through their troubled times and overcoming things and moving on, when I hit rough patches in my own life, it's always like, oh fuck, like oh shit, like this hurts, this pain
Mm,
hurts of having to
mhm.
really get into this and work with this stuff. And so it's a great empathetic reminder. What's your relationship like to working on yourself, in this context? Like how do you relate to then spinning it out into working with others?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's been a long journey. I always tell the our students to not run the risk of being a copy and paste coach, meaning there's so much information, especially today with the explosion of AI, where if you don't digest a concept yourself first, you're just you may just be copying and pasting information, and what you lose from that process when you're coaching someone is like the human exchange, the human process. So once you digest a concept, right, in this case containers, and then you tell yourself, oh, this works for me, this doesn't, this is the language I would use, you kind of make it your own. And that is such a more authentic way to help other people. So that's kind of what this is for me. Is, I learned all these theoretical orientations in therapy school, and it was just a lot of language. I couldn't get a grasp on it, and so creating, pseudo versus solid and returning what's not yours to own, and these kind of very street level theories was my way of digesting dense textbooks and making it my own. So when I'm helping other people, there's comfort in that, and I believe what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder, to
Hmm.
especially from the orientation. I recently started reading a book by James Baldwin about
Hmm.
his personal experience as a Black man. And the
Hmm.
reason that I picked it up is because I have relied so much recently on James Baldwin as like a source of inspiration on queer theory. And it
Hmm.
occurred to me that I didn't have a significant window into his personal narrative of that intersectional being as a Black man. And I was like, wow, if I'm going to really attach to this one piece, I need to understand the additional way that this
Hmm.
man, explored his life. And so for me, that was a way of like bridging the gap, theory, real life, and just like thinking about challenges, especially in a time of my own challenge. So I get that. I get
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
cool. All right. So you shared that a container is a space that when it's set up properly, when it's safe, it can really heal us. Can
Hmm.
you talk a little bit about what happens when containers aren't safe and how they
Yeah.
function in terms of awareness?
Yeah. So we all have cracks in our container,
Yeah.
and they could be hairline cracks or they could be giant cracks, and it's up to you or the client to decide what those are. The coach, we don't tell you what your cracks are. We help you investigate and explore those cracks. And like an obvious crack would be if you're in a unhealthy, abusive, or toxic relationship that is stunting your growth, but also the person that's being abusive. So imagine a container like a greenhouse. You
Yeah.
know, a safe greenhouse which allows sun and growth, nourishment, if you will. And so the whole idea is that we have the ability to build a brand new container. And where I started was pseudo versus solid self. And so if you're pulling more from your solid self instead of your pseudo, solid is your authentic self, your real self, usually the quiet whisper.
Mm,
Pseudo is the false version. So me growing up in Hollywood and pursuing screenwriting for most of my 20s and 30s, I was pseudo, right? This is where my whole exchanging truth for membership comes in. And so after my divorce, I just started here. I said, what would it look like if I was to be more solid? And I got the tattoos on my arms as reminders. And when I think about you, Noel, I think of someone who is very solid. I don't, when I reflect on all the exchanges we've had, I don't see a lot of false moments from you. You're very kind of authentic. You don't show up differently, you know, depending on who you're around. You are Noel pretty consistently. So that's a kind of a good example of someone who's kind of in their solid self.
yeah, thank you. You know
Hmm.
what I'm exploring right now though, and I thought would be a kind of like a good frame to test out this theory. And we'll just hit like the first three of like
Yeah,
home,
yeah, yeah.
relationships and work. But one of the things that I've struggled with over the years that has really chipped away has been my relationship with codependence.
Mm-hmm.
So while I have been and I am consistently solid, like I don't change who I am. I don't have like a pull or desire to change who
Hmm.
I am,
Hmm.
but I do caretake.
Yes.
I do caretake.
Yeah.
And so if I'm really being honest about the way that I exchange my truth for membership, it's in that
Right.
relationship. of
Right.
how
That's
we're providing safety for others.
I love that you said that because it's a little nuanced, but many can relate to it. Vanessa, has struggled with codependency, and so yes, when you are codependent or not okay because someone else is not okay, and you kind of struggle with um, your sense of self that hangs on someone else not being okay, that can, I think, pull you into more of a pseudo self,
Yeah.
even though overall you are solid in the way that you show up and you're authentic. If you are codependent, whether it's with parents, partners, whatever, you could be pseudo in that, right? You're sacrificing your truth for someone else's well-being. And yeah, you're definitely a caretaker. You're definitely the mom of the family.
Mom, yeah,
Yeah.
always,
Mhm.
always. And so and what that, has done is and I mean, we'll get into it, but it's not given the other parts of my identity that aren't a
Mhm.
mom
Mhm.
a chance to come forward, you know? So that's, so thinking about that in terms of how we're gonna do this. All right, so let's roll in. Um, let's get into the containers themselves. So the first one is your home and physical space. Does it
Mhm.
soothe or inspire you, or is it a dark and cluttered cave? When you were writing this and thinking about the home as a container,
Yeah.
um, is it just your physical space? What how did this show up for you? How did you start with this?
It's not just your physical; it's your also the home, kind of like internally. I had no home. I was always running. I was always trying to go somewhere, chase shiny things, and it showed in my home in that I never spent any time in things like candles or furnishings. I always felt like until I'm able to find my love and buy a house, my home will just be a hotel, right? And I had a friend who she was a feng shui person. She's like, "Why?" She's like, "You make your home now, and you'll actually attract, instead of being like this nomadic guy who's just buying a lot of IKEA furniture that's temporary." And yeah, and so I felt when I finally was able to create somewhat of a home, um, I felt more grounded. I felt like I had a place in this world. And to me, that is going to provide more of a safer container for you instead of feeling like you don't have a safe tree.
Yeah. Okay. So when we're approaching this with a client, the way ICF coaching technique is levied is you explain the theory as we've done. You ask the client if they want to play in the sandbox. We do, and then we
Hmm.
start asking questions. So, given the setup of knowing that I'm working on codependence, that I'm working on having other relationships with myself other than being a mom,
Hmm.
how would you start asking me and coaching me towards my home as a container?
Yeah, so I would ask you, in what relationships do you feel the strongest tug?
Ooh,
So the codependence, and for me, I would label it as your pseudo self. Um, in what relationships do you feel the strongest, and then I would kind of process the why. Where's that coming from?
yeah.
I would follow the string down. Why do you have to feel like, I mean, ultimately I think codependence is, it's about reducing anxiety, so you taking care of someone else reduces your anxiety. So talking about where that came from and the patterns of that and how that ripples into your life, how that's cracking your life space, your container, how that's making you feel like you don't have a safe space. So we're talking about physical home, but we're also talking about an internal home, right?
Yeah.
How that ungrounds you, how that builds anger and resentment over time, all of that stuff. So kind of showing the client what is happening because of this, because of the pseudo tug, or in your case, being codependent.
Yeah. So everything that you just shared, like hit the nail on the head and resonated with me so deeply. So like what I've come to understand is like I'm not a normie. You know, my
Mm-hmm.
my existence is very radical in many
Hmm.
ways.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
the idea of a standard home life ha
Mm,
is protective for me because it's like a way to show up and be like, look,
mm,
ma, I did it. I checked the boxes." And
mm,
that the anxiety that I feel of like providing for and making sure that that's always um, present,
Hmm.
having a nice house, a clean house, partner, whole 9 yards, was a way for me to maybe escape the cognitive dissonance
Mm.
of my actual identity and how that fits into the world, fits into my family life, fits
Mm.
into, people understanding or even accepting me.
Yeah, so that what you're saying is kind of what's running underneath, and you obviously have had many conversations and processes, so you're kind of aware of maybe more than some people, and so you have answers. You have
Yeah,
looked under the hood. You see how you're wired. You do understand self. And
yeah.
that's like half the journey. Just getting
It
people to understand themselves.
and that's it's what I'm experiencing right now, and what's giving me so much empathy for the coaching process is because I have the awareness. So
Hmm.
now I'm at the point of what am I going to do about it?
Mm.
And this is the point in coaching why that valued partnership is so necessary, is
Hmm.
having an outside person to hold up that mirror and say, "How long are you gonna sit in this suffering now that you have this awareness?"
Yeah, and then as a coach, accountability. Now that we've processed some things, how are we going to execute, right? So going back to my containers theory, it is theory until you start to build a new one, and that requires action.
Yeah.
And without that piece, then all we're doing is talking. We may have revelations, but it doesn't mean your life's going to change, right? So until Noelle puts some action behind her awareness of being codependent around certain people, she's always going to behave in that way. But once she puts action behind it, whether that means sending someone the voicemail or drawing boundaries or whatever that looks like, now her life can start to change. Her container can be more, can be stronger. I almost feel like I almost see like an invisible like force field, like a science fiction movie where the more you pedal your bike, the stronger that container gets, and your potential goes up. You grow.
It does. It's
Yeah,
true, and it's, and just, like, something you said was really important to the work of coaching is, like, you can have all the revelations you want, but your life isn't going to change,
yeah, yeah,
and so, that's where we walk over the bridge between therapy and coaching, and, like,
yeah,
the only person who can change your life is you, and it's so fucking hard, and it's so painful, and it's
yeah.
so worth it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and I would also say that you have a responsibility as a human on this planet to change, because then what you're supposed to do here on this planet, the chances of you executing that will go up, exponentially. And you're right. The difference between one of the differences between coaching and therapy is, in therapy, there's a lot of um, talking, a lot of processing, a lot of feelings, a lot of abstract experiences. Coaching, it's like, okay, now what are we going to do? How can we accomplish your goals?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then, getting into that goal state, these containers are supportive of the future goal state, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I guess my goal state would be the opposite of codependence, would be moving through the world where I'm responsible for the weight of my own self and nothing more.
Simply put, being less of a mom.
Yes,
Being
being
less
less
of a mom, right? Which is where and you're a great mom, even though you're not technically a mom, but to friends and to coworkers, in a way that's kind of like where you get your cape, and people love that about you. But there's risk in that, because then you start sacrificing yourself. And so,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's exactly the point to look at is like, "Oh, wow, this maladaptive behavior is doing something for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's doing something for me that's so powerful that it's kept it in place for that long."
Yeah.
And what's the fear on the other side, right?
I remember apologizing to you when we were, so Noel lived with me briefly when we were working together in Los Feliz. In my talking about apartments, my nondescript didn't. There was just it was just four walls and carpet and just kind of ugly. Um, Great location though, and I remember the team was working there, and I remember you making meals, and I loved that. It was very generous, you cooking meals. And I was trying to do this weird diet at the time. I was fasting, I was doing paleo, and you made a pasta dish. And I remember when I didn't want to partake in you being quote unquote a mom, because this is the way that you love people, you were taking care of us. I saw that you were hurt. You didn't
Hmm.
announce it, but I saw the pain in your eyes. And me talking about this made me realize that it was the codependence. It was me rejecting you, even though it was just a meal. Which and so when I saw the pain, I apologize. I try to explain that right now. I'm on a certain diet. I can't. But I think that um, you took it differently because of you being a mom and what that means to you. So I think you felt more rejected than the
Well, let's drill
someone.
down because this is really good. So using containers theory, right?
Mhm.
And kind of saying, okay, well, what was the function of me providing that meal in that home? It was nourishing people. And if
Mhm.
somebody didn't eat it, then my offering wasn't valuable.
Yeah,
That
or you're not valuable, or there's like a rejection.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then flipping that around, what did I believe it to say about myself? You
And
know?
there's also a cultural piece here, right? I mean, I feel like with you and how you grew up, I mean, the kitchen, food, cooking for people, this is how you show love.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
100%.
That wasn't the case in my house. I went out and, ate nachos and bought stuff. My parents never really made me food, so, that cultural difference also showed.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so if I'm rebuilding, that new container, and thinking about my relationship with food in my home, it sounds like one of the healthy shifts, one of the behaviors that I would need to change is to ask the people that I want to feed, "Are you hungry? Do you want food?"
Right, right. Yes. I have the ability and I would like, but basically, yeah, permission.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Versus like what a mom does, which is like the steamroll.
Like it's already on the table. You walk in the door, the place is all set and ready to go, which is generous, but it is skipping that piece. And then I have an opportunity to say, um, oh, I would love to, and this is so generous, but I am on this weird diet and I can only drink oil or whatever it is. And don't take it personally, please. Right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so what that ultimately does for me is then like spares me the labor
Yeah.
of that process. And I don't
Right.
have to go through the process of making food for somebody to nourish somebody who doesn't actually need it.
Yes. Because if you do it and I say no, you also now may be mad that you just did all this for nothing, and
Yeah.
food's going to be wasted and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is such a beautiful illustration of how a coaching conversation goes with using containers theory. So,
Mm,
just kind of like really briefly touching on the other categories. There's friends and family, and then
yeah.
you would separate those out. Friends, family,
Yeah.
and then would you separate out further romantic relationships, partnered relationships?
Yeah,
How
for sure. Yeah.
yes.
I
There's
look at all the big pie pieces of our life. So friends, family, it's one. Friends is one, families is one, romantic relationships, obviously a huge piece. And then work life career can be one, right?
Yep, work life career is another, and then I have the third one as your relationship with your physical self.
Yeah,
Um,
so this comes from me discovering movement. I did my first squat at age 35. I was very late so I was very disconnected with myself and body. So I think that just movement, your connection that you have with your own body, can be a container. That can be space where there's cracks in it or not.
Yeah, and I think that last piece of body really relates back to the other categories because if you're not in touch with how you feel somatically, where you're
Mm,
holding tension, when
hmm.
you're holding tension, what's showing up for you, are you caring for yourself? What does it feel like to be healthy? Like
Yeah.
a conversation I was having with myself this morning, I woke up and I was like unreasonably tired.
Mm,
I
hmm.
was like, I wonder what it would be like to wake up and like actually have energy. I'm only 43. Like I should be
Hmm.
waking up like and being able to have energy. And so that was a signal to me that
Mm,
like I have a crack in that container.
yeah. Yeah.
There's something that's up. And so then with, body, because I think folks are pretty familiar with how to drill down in family, friends, and work environment. But with body, that's when you have to get into the territory of like, well, what do you put in your body?
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
right? Like, is it substances? Is it food? Is it a lack of food? Is
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
like what's going on in there that's contributing to, basically self-abuse, and how does that tie
Mhm.
in to the rest of it, right?
Yes, so all of that, how you move your body, your connection to your body, how are you fueling your body, what do you put in your body, how do you treat your body? A lot
Mhm.
of people treat their body horribly or ignore or numb, and so that disconnection is a crack in your container.
Yeah, and another piece I'm thinking of that, is really typically left out of body conversations, but is, like, rich for coaching, is how do you decorate your body?
Mm,
Because
yeah,
that's where there's such a crux of, like, worthiness in there. Like, as I've been going through
yeah,
a rough patch, I noticed that I've not been putting on any jewelry,
mm,
and I love jewelry. I have
yeah,
so much jewelry, and I haven't been wearing it. I haven't had the energy to decorate my body, and I was like, "Okay, something's up. Like, I
yeah.
need to really get in there with this container."
One of the things that Vanessa misses the most about the East Coast is fashion, and how in New York people put so much emphasis on decorating their body. In LA, everyone's just wearing sweats and t-shirts. Like that's just everywhere. Boardroom,
Yeah.
gym, it's all just. And so um, she misses that. And so there's a part of her that feels disconnected because she grew up in New York where decorating your body was a big deal, and it's a way you express yourself, your art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and it's part and parcel, of the whole 9. Tattoos,
Yeah,
uh,
tattoos, right.
color,
Haircut, everything.
how do you express yourself,
Yeah, yeah.
how do you wanna be seen in the world? Alright. So this has been a beautiful, conversation. Thank you for playing along with me.
Well, you're welcome.
Folks are interested in working with this theory. First of all, come see us at Lumia. You have a
Mhm,
front row seat to all of John's
mhm.
resources. What advice would you give to coaches who want to pick up your book, or who want to say, "Okay, I really want to get in there"?
Yeah, and, we just kind of, scraped the surface on this containers theory. Um, One of the reasons why I teach this is to show you that coaching doesn't have to be so complicated, right? I've always been kind of the let's bring it to street level. What does it? How do you say it in English, right? Like, how can I apply this tomorrow? So, if you think coaching is complicated and dense, I'm here to tell you that it's not. And if someone like me can take dense stuff and then use coaching to really simplify, this is a kind of a great way into that. And so, yeah, coaching can be what you want it to be, and coaching can meet you where you're at, as a coach.
Absolutely, and
Yeah,
and I've gotten so much just in preparing for this, conversation, in having the chance to ask these questions of myself,
yeah.
and it's felt hard, but the outcome is that I'm feeling a lot more empathy for my clients right now,
Hmm,
because
hmm.
I'm pushing them to change, and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
man, I gotta do it too." And then the simplicity of it was like, wow, you can really break it down into very simple components of how am I treating my body, how am I treating my container of my home,
Hmm,
and then kinda
hmm.
work from.
Yeah, this is, and we could kind of end with this. This is why I love Marie Kondo, the one
Yeah,
that, I mean, how much more simple can you get than just go through your drawers and throw away everything unless it sparks joy? I love that. I just love how simple that is. But she's has an entire empire based on these simple joy concepts, and my container is kind of like it's similar in that way.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone, we will see you next time. John, have a great day.
Yeah. Work on your containers. Be well.
Catch you later.